Here is scene 1 expanded to approximately 1,000 words with no headings, exactly as you requested. Dash dash dash. The lunch rush always had its own rhythm, forks tapping against plates in a predictable melody, the muted hum of conversation rising and falling like waves, the occasional laughter from a table celebrating something small but precious. Usually, Mia Dawson thrived in this rhythm. It kept her mind busy, kept her worries at bay, and gave her a sense of purpose she clung to, especially on the harder days. Today was supposed to be just another shift. Another long day of carrying plates, remembering orders, and wearing a smile that didn't always feel real. But all of it shattered with one voice. "Are you kidding me? I said no onions." The shout hit the air like a crack of thunder. Several customers froze mid-bite. A spoon dropped somewhere. Even the kitchen door stopped swinging for a moment. Mia's stomach tightened. She turned toward table 7 even before her name was called, already knowing who stood there. The man's reputation had reached even the back of the restaurant. Clayton Hale, billionaire tech mogul, founder of Hale Dynamics. A man whose companies built half the apps everyone used, a man interviewed on financial networks, a man whose temper was whispered about in boardrooms and banquets alike. But today, he wasn't a lofty figure from a distance. He was right there, towering over his plate, blue eyes sharp with annoyance, fingers curled against the tablecloth as if restraining the urge to strike something. His expensive suit, a deep navy lined with subtle stitching that screamed custom tailoring, did nothing to soften the harshness in his expression. The plate sat in front of him, his gourmet burger seemingly perfect except for a few slivers of onion resting on top like a personal insult. "I'm sorry, sir," Mia said as she approached, the words instinctive. Conflict always made her voice softer, calmer. "I'll fix it right away." "It should have been right the first time," he snapped, glaring at her as if she had done it deliberately. "How hard is it to follow a simple request?" "No, onions." He leaned forward on each word, his irritation intensifying. People at surrounding tables were pretending not to watch, but their heads tilted, their eyes flickered, their forks slowed. No one missed this. The waitress with the quiet smile was being torn apart by a man who could probably buy the whole street if he wanted to. Mia's heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to inhale slowly. She'd dealt with rude customers before, but something about this felt different. Maybe it was the volume. Maybe it was the humiliation. Maybe it was the fact that she had been working non-stop for 9 hours, barely pausing for a sip of water, because rent was overdue again and her mother's latest medical bill sat folded in her apron pocket, like a weight dragging her toward the ground. She steadied the plate with both hands. "I apologize." Clayton cut her off, his voice rising further. "Apologies don't fix incompetence." The words were loud enough to reach the kitchen window. A few cooks peeked out. The manager stood halfway across the restaurant, frozen, unsure whether to intervene or stay out of the billionaire's way. Mia swallowed, her throat tightening, not with fear, but with something sharper. She'd been talked down to many times in this job. She'd been ignored, brushed aside, treated like decoration. But no one had ever yelled at her like she wasn't a real person. Not like this, not in front of an entire room. A strange calm washed over her. Her fingers stopped trembling. She set the plate down gently, almost gracefully, though her pulse felt like it was hammering against her ribs. She met his eyes. "Shout at me again," she said softly. But the words carried, and this ends. Silence. A heavy, absolute silence that seemed to wrap around every table, every chair, every breath in the room. Clayton blinked, as if he hadn't heard correctly. His brows pulled together, not in anger now, but in confusion. "What?" Mia stood straighter. She wasn't tall, barely reaching his shoulder, but in that moment, she felt grounded, rooted, steady. "You heard me. Shout at me again, and this ends. This meal ends. I will not serve you, and I will ask you to leave." Someone gasped quietly. A woman near the window covered her mouth. A man whispered, "Did she just?" Clayton stared at her, his expression flickering between disbelief and irritation. No one ever challenged him. No one told him no. He was a man used to controlling rooms, deals, entire companies. But here was a waitress, just a waitress, some might say, drawing a line he hadn't expected to see. His jaw tightened, his nostrils flared. Mia waited for the explosion, the tirade, the inevitable words that would not just get her fired but probably end with her cleaning out her locker before the hour was over. But then something shifted in his face. A crack in the facade. A flicker of realization, maybe even shame. He exhaled, a sharp, frustrated sound, but the anger drained from his shoulders. His gaze dropped to the plate, then back to her. You're right. The words came rough, as if he hadn't used them in years. I shouldn't have spoken to you that way. No one moved. He straightened his suit jacket, smoothing a hand over the fabric. It was a nervous gesture, surprisingly human. I'm sorry, he added. Truly, the apology wasn't grand, it wasn't eloquent, but it was real. Mia felt it. Everyone did. A billionaire had bowed, however subtly, to a woman who had every reason to stay silent but chose not to. For a moment, the two of them simply looked at each other. Mia, still startled that he had interrupted. Clayton, unexpectedly humbled. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition, a shift, a crack in the armor of both their lives. Let me fix your order, Mia said finally, her voice gentle again. Clayton nodded. Thank you. As she walked back to the kitchen, whispers followed her. Admiration, shock, curiosity. Mia didn't turn around, but she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Strength, maybe even pride. And somewhere behind her, for the first time in his adult life, Clayton Hale sat quietly in a restaurant, thinking about the kind of man he had become, and the woman who had dared to call him out on it. Here is Scene 2 expanded to approximately 1,000 words, with no headings, exactly as you requested. Clayton returned the next afternoon, though he tried to convince himself it wasn't intentional. He told his driver he was hungry. He told himself he just happened to be nearby. But when he reached Alden's Bistro, when he stood outside the window watching the familiar glow of the dining room, he knew exactly why he was there. He pushed open the door quietly, almost cautiously, nothing like the man who had stormed through it the day before. The lunch crowd was lighter this time, a few tables scattered with students, office workers, and an elderly couple sharing a soup bowl. No one looked up when he entered. No one except Mia. She was carrying a tray of drinks, moving between tables with her usual graceful speed. For a moment, she was simply doing her job. Then she looked up, just a quick glance, and froze for half a second. Clayton lifted a hand in an awkward half-wave before he could stop himself. Mia blinked, surprised, not annoyed, not scared, just surprised. He took the same table as yesterday, sitting down with an odd sort of stiffness, as though he was unsure what to do with himself. His fingers traced the edge of the menu, though he didn't really read it. Part of him wondered if he should leave. Maybe she didn't want to see him. Maybe he was intruding, but something about yesterday lingered in his mind, a clarity he hadn't felt in years. When Mia approached his table, she didn't force a smile. She didn't appear nervous either. She simply looked curious. Back again, Mr. Hale, she asked, setting down a glass of water. He stood. It wasn't a conscious decision. His body moved on instinct, compelled by something he couldn't name. And as he rose to his feet, Mia's eyebrows lifted slightly. He cleared his throat. Miss Dawson. She stared at him for a moment, unsure what he was doing. You don't have to stand up for me, she said gently. I know. He offered something resembling a smile. I wanted to. She wasn't sure how to respond to that. But she gestured for him to sit, and he did, folding his hands together on the table like a schoolboy waiting for instructions. So, what can I get for you today? She asked. Clayton shook his head slowly. That's not why I came. Mia tilted her head. No, he sighed. I came because, yesterday you did something no one else has done in a very long time. She didn't interrupt. She simply listened, giving him her full attention. It threw him off balance. People usually listen to him out of fear or necessity, not out of sincerity. You told me the truth, he continued. You told me to stop. It wasn't meant to be profound, Mia replied with a small laugh. You were shouting. I couldn't just let that slide. No, you couldn't, and you didn't. He tapped his fingers lightly against the table. You were the first person in years who wasn't scared of my temper. That's because I didn't know who you were, she said honestly. If I had known, maybe I. No, he cut her off quickly, shaking his head. I'm glad you didn't. It made it real. Her eyes softened just a little. He leaned back slightly, exhaling. I went home yesterday and realized something. No one ever tells me when I'm out of control. No one calls me out. Everyone excuses my behavior because of money, power, whatever. He waved a hand. So I've gotten worse. I didn't even notice. Mia's expression shifted, still gentle, but with an undercurrent of sadness. That sounds lonely. The words hit him harder than anything she'd said so far. Lonely. Not rude, not cruel, not entitled. Lonely. He didn't respond right away. His chest tightened unexpectedly, as though someone had peeled back a layer he never expected anyone to touch. Maybe it is, he admitted quietly. Maybe I am. She sat down across from him without asking, folding her apron into her lap. No one had ever dared take the seat opposite him during a meal. Even his assistants always hovered nearby, standing like obedient statues. What do you want from me, Clayton? She asked gently. Hearing his first name startled him. It wasn't disrespectful, it wasn't bold, it just felt normal. And normal was a rarity in his world. Advice, he said. How do I fix this? How do I talk to people without blowing up? Mia let out a soft, breathy laugh. You ask that like I teach communication workshops on the side. You handle angry customers every day, he said. People push you, insult you, snap at you, and you don't lose your composure. You stay steady. That's because I don't have a choice, she replied. My job depends on it. Maybe that's exactly why I need to learn from you, he murmured. They sat in silence for a moment. A comfortable one. Finally, she said, start by listening. Really listening, not waiting for your turn to speak or react. He nodded slowly. Listening. It's harder than it sounds. I can tell. A small smile tugged at her lips. You really want to learn? I came here, didn't I? He said, spreading his hands helplessly. She looked at him thoughtfully, trying to decide if he was genuinely asking for help or simply wrestling with guilt. But his expression was sincere, more sincere than she thought possible from yesterday's version of him. All right, she said, you can watch me work today. Sit in the corner, observe people, listen to them. See how they react, how they soften when they're understood. You're giving me homework, something like that. Clayton let out an unexpected laugh, short, surprised, as if he didn't recognize the sound himself. Okay, homework it is. He moved to a corner table. No one noticed him at first. He was just another customer, watching quietly. But he wasn't watching the food or the decor or his phone. He was watching Mia. She guided a crying child back to her seat with a gentle hand. She helped an elderly couple understand the menu, kneeling beside them so she'd be at eye level. She calmed a frustrated businessman by treating him like a person instead of a problem. Every interaction was deliberate, soft, patient. Clayton found himself drawing in slow breaths, mirroring her calm. A few times, he caught himself smiling, something small and almost shy. When the shift neared its end, Mia returned to the table where he sat. So, she asked, what did you learn? He didn't hesitate. That I talk more than I listen. That I react too fast. That kindness doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger than most people. Mia felt something warm stir in her chest. Clayton leaned forward slightly. And that you, he paused, searching for the right words. You're extraordinary, Mia. She looked down, her cheeks warming. I'm just doing my job. No, he said softly. You're doing a lot more than that. The dining room had emptied. Sunlight streamed through the windows in soft strips. For a moment, it felt like they were the only two in the world. Yesterday, she had confronted him. Today, she had changed him. And as they sat in the fading afternoon light, neither of them quite realized it yet, but one shouted sentence had become the beginning of something neither of them expected.